Welcome to another video about Mexico. Today we're going to talk about import substitution policy. This policy appeared as a consequence of World War II and Great Depression. The objective consisted in transform the industrial activity on an economic development and capital accumulation axis. So we could move from an economy based in agriculture and mining of exportations to other in which the industrial manufacture provides the internal market. This model also sped up the industrial investment, principally for the domestic market.
At the end of the Great Depression, important changes started to be made in Mexico. During the administration of President Lázaro Cárdenas, the Agrarian Reform 1935 was initiated. The petroleum and railroad industries were nationalized. A nationalist development project with autonomy was developed. This structural change leads to the participation of the government as an active agent promoter of change and development. At the beginning of the Second World War, and particularly at the end, the government reoriented the national development project, giving rise to an industrialization strategy known as the import substitution model, which seeks to substitute manufactured goods of foreign origin that until the moment they had satisfied the local consumption by articles of the same nature manufactured by the national industry. What was intended with the model of import substitution was that the Mexican industry could advance, that it could improve its technologies, and that it could grow as such. Therefore, they increased the import tax so that the Mexican industry would buy things from each other. When the Mexican industry wanted to manufacture a product, they bought the material abroad and the foreigner obtained benefits. What they did was increase the tax on imports so that they would no longer buy abroad and companies could buy Mexican products and in that way make them grow. But they didn't get the results that they wanted. Companies increased profits, but they did not improve their products.
Mexico was forced to implement this model due to the lack of the previous model called Agrario Exportador. This model consists in Mexico being mostly engaged in producing primary products and exporting them. Due to the Great Depression, demand for primary products in developed countries decreased rapidly. Besides this, another problem was the cost of this model's technology. The developed countries were increasing while the cost of the primary products were decreasing. Due to this inequality, the developed countries, including Mexico, couldn't develop by importing technology but should generate theirs. That's why they opt to use the import substitution model.
At the beginning of the 70s, the country was experiencing moderated economic growth, but with internal and external financial imbalances. The images of economic of Mexico abroad was rebuilt, as well as the fame that the country abroad had generated, where it was recognized as the creator and beneficiary of the Mexican miracle. All this was gradually disappearing as it known the internal situation of the country, where poverty increasingly affected millions of Mexicans, and where employment and inflation were increasingly evident. The economic benefit that had been talked about only reached a few Mexicans. Economic development was foregained to most Mexicans. This policy continued to be applied during the following 6 years, representing a new economic crisis.
Not long after the start of the implementation of this economic model on different countries in the developing process, it began to highlight that the two fundamental problems linked to it were the inflation and the external imbalance, which this was what produced a cycle of growth and retreat in regular periods of time, which led this model to being responsible for multi-period hyperinflationary periods in countries like Brazil or Argentina, for example. The reason is that, contrary to what was thought, the model required in its expensive phase the importation of capital goods and intermediates, which take account of discouragement to the export sector. It generated an imbalance that was supposed to be resolved through inflationary periods and possibly an hyperinflation, and after which the cycle kept restarting. The devaluation acted as a damaging mechanism of the distribution of the resources and impelled to consumption to avoid the devaluation of the currency. Which this was what produced an illusion of wealth, and as long as unemployment stays low and the labor market did not demand a high training. As a conclusion, you are not encouraged to have domestic savings or even investments.
Thank you for watching the video. Don't forget to share it with your friends and family. Come back in a couple of days to discover what the topic will be discussed. Leave your comments below and don't forget to like the video. Until next time, people.